Timothy Wenger here from The Man Effect. I'm bringing you guys today a unique interview. I had someone reach out to me via Facebook um, talking about her past and about some of her interesting experiences. And I thought it would be really beneficial and good for everyone to hear part of her story and just kind of talk with her about what happened. And due to part of her story, we're just keeping certain details anonymous. But yeah, I just thought it'd be really fun. So thank you for joining me. And yeah, is there anything you want to say before we jump in here?
No, just thank you for having me, and thank you for this opportunity to share.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess we'll address you as W.
I like it.
No, so I had written on in my Facebook. I always post questions and stuff, and W reached out to me with part of her story that was brought up in relevance to some of the conversations that were happening on these posts, and so I'm just interested, and I think this is a relevant topic because a lot of my posts, some stuff that was coming up specifically was about sex trafficking, because I was posting articles about sex doll brothels and et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, so W, why don't you just kind of give everyone a little bit of a background and kind of, let's just jump right into your story that you shared with me, and let's just kind of go from there.
Sure. Yeah, so the super short version is I was raised in an ultra conservative world. It's technically an cult that I was raised in, but it to help people wrap their minds around it, it was basically a Mennonite Amish kind of upbringing. So no music, no TV. I had to wear skirts all the time, no pants allowed. And in that culture, women definitely do not have a voice. They're baby makers. So that was kind of my upbringing. I was courted a lot by older men, which is like the biblical way of dating, but it's really bizarre and very like arranged marriage almost.
Like how much older? Like 20 years older?
Yeah, like I'd be in my teens and these men would be in their 30s. So at a very young age, this kind of grooming process, what we call the grooming process, started. And so, fast forward, it was a very good family. My parents met well and everything they, tried to do. So no hard feelings there. They're fantastic. But then the other side of that was we're extremely wild Italian family. So there's a lot of alcohol abuse happening. And so I joke and say, like, my entire life is a complete contradiction everywhere you look at it, because it's like, oh, Amish Mennonite, but wild Italian alcoholics. How does that work? It can work. So yeah, that was basically my upbringing. I was really outgoing as a kid, loved school, in 4-H, doing Toastmasters, all that kind of stuff. So I was super outgoing and fun loving. And then along the way, there was some sexual abuse that started. But other than that, it was a good childhood and conservative upbringing. So
yeah. And so I was actually kind of curious, did your parents choose to be Mennonites, or did they grow up in it?
Yeah, they chose it because they came from a pretty wild background and they wanted a different lifestyle for us, for my sibling and I.
That's like an extreme swing.
Yes. Yes, very extreme.
That's really fascinating. So fast forward, that was kind of your upbringing that kind of set you up. And I'm sure there's a lot of stories in between then and the story that you shared with me, but why don't we kind of just jump in a little bit to that initial story about, the abusive relationship and what followed that.
Yeah, so because I never had real life experience in dating, I'd never been taught to date. I'd never been taught to what to look for in a man. So, fast forward to my early 20s, I'm kind of out on my own doing the college thing, if you
Mm-hmm.
will. And
Mm-hmm.
I run into a man who shows me interest for the first time ever in my life. So he has a great reputation. He is really good with his kids, and I'm like, man, that's pretty attractive. Like, I like that. And he was also one of my coaches. So I was doing MMA fighting. I was just getting into it, and he actually was one of my coaches, and so I was spending quite a bit of time with him. And so when he showed interest, I just was naive and was like, oh my goodness, I was so flattered, and just started dating him.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and red flag is he asked me to keep the relationship private. That's never a
Okay.
good sign when they're not proud to date you. Um, So the first thing he's like, hey, let's just keep this between us because we're in the fight world and we don't want our reputations to be dumbed down by the fact that we're having sex. All right, no problem. I thought it was a great idea. I thought it was awfully romantic, having this secret Romeo Juliet kind of relationship, and that's just me being dumb. And then it just kind of escalated, and it was really, as far as like abusive wise, it was so subtle. And our training sessions would kind of blur into like sex, but we were still fighting. So then now the sex is really abusive and rough.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just this whole subtle, confusing thing. And then he starts talking to me about how he loves it. Him and his ex used to have other people in their relationship and how that turns him on, and how he thinks it would be so hot that other guys want me. And I'm like, all right, like, this kind of works, but, and I really like this guy, and I really want him to keep liking me, and naive me just wanted to please him. Like, I was so like 3 months into it, totally in love with this guy. He had me wrapped around his finger. So then he would be inviting friends over to hang out, and they're getting drunk, and he's encouraging them to make advances on me. And so at first it was really, I was like, no, that ain't gonna happen. But they keep coming at you. He likes it. He's like, yeah, all these guys want my girl. And then one night they were all really drunk, and these are all fighters, right? And I'm 115 pounds soaking wet at this time. So basically they gang raped me at his house, and he is there cheering them on in the background. And he like holds me down by my throat and is like, I love you so much. You're so hot right now, as they're raping me.
That's
So if
crazy.
you can imagine the mind fuck, like total mind fuck from Mennonite girl to this.
Mm.
And that's when it started.
Mm. That's dang. That's crazy.
Yeah,
So that went from someone that you trusted to that quickly. That's
yeah. It was within 3 months, and then from that point forward, it just kind of escalated to where he was Native American, so we were on the reservation land quite a bit,
mm.
and he made it very clear to me that everybody was under his control there, and if I tried to say anything, do anything, they would kill me. They would cut me. His mother had her throat slit for being disrespectful by her husband, and she had a huge scar on her neck. And he like would insinuate that, hey, this is what's going to happen with you. So yeah, there were beatings, there were knives, there were guns being held to me, while being raped. I've been raped with a gun before. So the abuse was just all over the board. Inviting friends up to come, have sex with me. And so it just escalated from that point forward.
That's crazy. And so W, the reason why you'd reached out to me is because we've been talking about sex trafficking and how that you are now in a space where you're helping fight it,
Yeah.
and it comes from a place of you were essentially in that, and so how did that progress, and like how did you get out of it? Like that's just this is just all bizarre to me.
Yeah. So the goal was to get off the reservation.
Mm.
Um, and get back to civilization, because he had me kind of isolated in a cabin up there. And he was trying to get me pregnant with a Native American baby, because he knew that by law he could keep the child. And so that was the whole goal of entrapment. So I was sent to go see a client, and I was a prostitute. So like, let's not pretend like sex trafficking and prostitution are one and the same. If anybody wants to talk to me about that, they can. He sent me to have sex with this guy. I didn't want to have sex with him, so I knocked him out, because we were sparring too before that. And I got into a car accident as I left, and went to the hospital with severe brain trauma. The police officer thought I was dead when he found me. And when I woke up, it was like coming out of water, for that first huge breath. And I was like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, what is going on? And it was crystal clear to me what was happening. Prior to that, I had no idea what was going on. But getting knocked out was the best thing that happened to me. And I tried to commit suicide that night. Didn't work for whatever reason. And then I got my dog, and then I bought a plane ticket, all within 3 days. And I came back to my home, which was across the nation, and started pursuing mental health, because I knew I was messed up. I just couldn't understand it all. So I just started pursuing fixing myself. So after about 4 years of that, I felt like I was ready to give back, and started looking around for NGOs to work for. And there was a domestic violence place, and I was like, that's not it. And then when I found the organization I'm working for now, they're built the way I would build an organization. And so it was an easy yes for me. And now I work getting women off the streets, out of the jails, out of detoxes, wherever they are, out of prostitution and into a new life. And we have safe housing and all those kind of programs. So.
And so essentially, not only were you in what most people don't experience, you were immersed in it, but also now you're helping people get out of that. So you've stayed in that kind of atmosphere in some ways, and helping women get out of being in that industry. It's kind of shocking to me. I just, because obviously I don't have experience like that, but do you think there were like these defining circumstances that led you into that situation? You had mentioned grooming, but like, was it just, I'm just really kind of curious about that. And do you think it's just the environment of other men that weren't there in your life? Or I don't know. I'm very curious about all this.
Yeah, I think it was a mix of things. So yeah, the grooming as a child, and then there was a lot of sexual abuse that happened to me as a child, just from creepy uncles and bad neighborhood boys, So I was molested at 7, and then I was gang raped a couple of years after that. When I was 15, this guy tied me up in a closet and took my first kiss, and I gave my first blowjob. So I think it was just like, the bad guys found me. When people are hurt, other people can feel that, and hurt people. So when there's dysfunction, other dysfunctional people are really drawn to that, unfortunately, and that's how people are victimized. And in my work, I found that 1 out of 3 girls are sexually abused, and 1 out of 5 boys are sexually abused in America. Really? And we find that to be 100% the root issue of sex trafficking, because boundaries are crossed, secrets are kept, and it just kind of, they stuff it, which is exactly what I did until I got to this breaking point in my 20s, was lonely, was depressed, anxious, and then I was ripe for the picking. And that's what happens with our women. They experience, 10 times worse childhood than I did. And then they use drugs to numb out. They either use drugs to feel or to not feel. And then they get addicted, and then their dope boys come around, and now they have to sell their body to feed their addiction. So prostitution is never a choice. There's no such thing as a 7th grade slut. it's a process. And so when men engage in prostitution, they're literally raping that 7-year-old girl who was molested. It's still that same little girl. It's still that wound that they're exploiting. So
in your experience with the women that you've interacted with, almost, is it like 100% of them have been
100%?
Really?
Yeah. And even the men, I encounter men on the street more and more now, and it's the same kind of thing. Yeah. Some uncle did something, or some, neighbor did something, and they couldn't talk about it because it's not accepted to talk about it. Nobody wants to talk about this because it's so huge in the States, in America, that it's overwhelming. And so, yeah, all this sexual abuse led up to making me a really broken person. And then the second part of that, I think, is I was obviously involved in the church. I was a Christian. I was like studying the word. But the church didn't teach me how to have a bad day. So when my trauma escalated and came out, I didn't know how to deal with that. And so, now I'm living in sin. Now I need to repent. Now something's wrong with me. Well, I'm already broken. I'm already violated. I'm already worthless because of my sexual abuse, right? And so now you're telling me I have more sin in my life. I'm more broken. I'm more fucked up. And it's like, it absolutely destroyed my self-worth.
Yeah. So the one place that was supposed to be your safety became another place of condemnation.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's brutal. So, like, what are some steps that you've taken personally on the mental health level to help stabilize yourself?
I am in therapy all the time. So I go to rapid resolution treatment, which is it's similar to a lot of different PTSD therapies, but this one was developed for veterans coming back from Iraq, and it basically resolves the PTSD within a couple sessions.
Oh, wow.
So it's pretty phenomenal. So he actually is able to separate the neuron from the memory, so, or from the emotion. So I can talk about this without having a breakdown, or without feeling icky. It takes it from my short term and puts it in my long term. So I'm not reliving the trauma every day. Wow. It's really phenomenal. So that's been a huge game changer. And then I have built a community. I have 3 mentors that I'm in constant contact with because I'm going to get triggered at work, and then keeping really great men in my life too, and allowing them to be men and allowing them to be those protectors, I think has really balanced me out really well. Because the real tragedy here isn't my story. The real tragedy is his story, that he is so broken and cannot receive love that he has to go out and steal it from someone so maliciously and so violently. Like, what a horrible existence is that? And I think that's the real tragedy. Like, I feel really sorry for him.
And just kind of like through this whole process, because my target market is men. Like, how did your perspective of men change going through all of this?
Honestly, like, I love men, and that's not funny. But like, just like, my compassion has grown for them, and I've seen what modern feminism has done to demasculate them. And so, of course, they're going to act out. Of course, we're going to have a rape culture when we don't allow men to be who they are innately. We give them 2 options. They can be, put in the friend zone and be the gay best friend, or they have to roll over, lay down, and shut up, or they have to be a rapist. It's one of the 2. And we don't give them the option to practice their masculinity with grace and with, which is strength under control, or be protectors like they're supposed to be. And so after experiencing this, I'm like, how do I address the other side of this? Kind of like what you're asking me now. And so, like, my goal right now is to just love every single man that comes into my life and affirm him and make sure that he doesn't have to go to the extreme to receive that affirmation and love that he needs, obviously with healthy boundaries. But Like my fiance, I'm going to make sure that he never needs to go buy porn. I'm going to make sure, and I'm not talking sexually, I'm talking every single aspect. I'm going to build him up and affirm him and respect him every opportunity I get, you know, and just affirm who he is as a man and what role he has to play in my life, and just speak to his strengths and cover his weaknesses. And so I mean, we need men. Despite what everybody's saying right now, we need good men in the world. And there was one moment where I was talking to one of my friends before I fully stepped into this world and with this guy, and I was kind of passive aggressively like begging him to like tell me not to. He had no idea what I was doing, but it was kind of like my plea. I could feel my like heart like begging him to like, please respect me, and please show me I'm worth something more than this. And he had no idea, like I said. And I remember that night, and he was just kind of like, whatever, you know, yeah, sure, go date this guy. And it was a really sad moment for me. So we need brothers, we need fathers, we need uncles. We need to put a stop to the creepy uncle in the family. Like, stop allowing that kind of joke to continue. That's not funny. You know, things like that, I think. And that's how, like, my view has changed towards men. And that's what I feel like this world has stopped saying. And what we've done to men is really a tragedy.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty common for someone who's gone through your experience to just assume that all men are evil. So I'm very impressed and encouraged just by that. So what do you want men to take away from this, like in hearing part of your story? I'm like, what is your hope that they hear you saying?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that would just be kind of me repeating what I just said, that we need society to get back to a true place of acceptance of true masculinity. And I would just encourage men, despite what the crazies are saying and the loud voices are screaming, that's not what women need, and that's not what women want. We want those good men. We want chivalry. We want the door to be held open for us, you know, because my strength as a woman looks a lot different than your strength as a man. And when those two strengths come together, it's an amazing thing. It's an incredible thing. You can change the world with something like that. But it only works when the strengths meet. And I guess my plea would be to men is to be men, to listen to their gut and don't play into what the world says they have to play into. If they want to be a bro and catch a football and tackle people, cool. But then also make sure you're working on that self-growth, that inner side, your character and your morality, you know, like seek the balance. Don't seek the extremes. You know, because we need those men.
Yeah, like what I really like to encourage men for is like specifically, you said that real masculinity, I think is the term that you used, is like, I believe any actions that produce honor or respect in your immediate or extended community are actions that produce healthy masculinity. And so that would be kind of a good guideline, I would say.
I agree.
Masculinity is kind of a moving target. So it's not something I would say is easily defined. But what about for the women that are watching this or listening? What would you want to say to them?
Stop being a bitch. Like we are so mean. Just I would say to implore women to help men cultivate this masculinity. So, I mean, you turn on the TV and every sitcom is making the man out to be this dumb, stupid Neanderthal. And guess what dumb animals do? They have sex, you know? That's all they know how to do. So when you give them that play-by-play, when you give them that script, they're going to follow it. So, like, to my women, like, let's use this like uprising of feminism and empowerment, and use it in a beautiful, empowering, articulate way to raise up our men and to show them what we love about them and what we need from them, instead of beating the crap out of them. And to, just to take that support, and obviously, like, know your self-worth and all that good stuff, whatever. Like, I think we're kind of past that right now as a society. But for those women to just love their men well, and to as you would want to be treated as a woman, you know, you want to be affirmed, you want your strengths to be, you know, on display, you want your weaknesses to be covered. Do the same for your guys. It's not difficult. It's not rocket science. You know, just be nice and quit being a needy little bitch.
That was not what I expected, but I like it. It's funny.
It's true though, right? Like, don't quit being a victim. You're not a victim of anything. It's called life. Life is hard. I don't consider myself a victim. Like, almost every female I've ever encountered has been sexually abused. Like, this is life. And so we just got to do our best to become the best version of ourselves. And we only don't hear men talking about sexual abuse because they don't talk about it, because it's a stigma. It's still happening. So who's to say women are necessarily being targeted? It's like, no, boys are being targeted too. They're being raped every day. Are you kidding me? So I would just say, open your mind. Don't be a bitch.
Yeah, I've spent a good amount of time on online forums where men feel comfortable enough to actually speak about their experiences, and it's really sad, the amount of men that have had quite a few traumatic experiences too, but they don't feel safe to say anything. So I think what's really important for everyone too is just like something I wanted to highlight was focusing on the outcomes and trying to put a Band-Aid on them isn't as, like, I understand you like wanting to heal, but what I'm really happy for is that you've gone and gotten therapy. Like, you're more going towards the root of the cause, or the pain causer. And that's what I really like for men to do too, is for them to pursue emotional intelligence and becoming more secure in themselves, because that's how you fight this stuff on a tangible level, in my opinion.
And that's what we see with the women I work with. They have symptoms there, which is addiction, which is promiscuity, which is rage or alcoholism. But always that root issue is that 4-year-old girl who was sold to their mom's drug dealer for drugs and raped. That's the core issue. So 100% what you're saying, you're right on point.
Yeah, that's crazy. And just before we end here, why don't you give people just, I mean, without giving any like revealing details, but kind of what you do with your organizations and kind of the women that you're helping and stuff. I think that's a great, like, just point for them to hear that stuff is going on like this.
Yeah, we're the fastest growing anti-sex trafficking organization in the nation. So we have safe homes all over the country. We also we train police, we train FBI. I work closely with FBI, FDLE, ICE, everybody, all the law enforcement agencies. That's more my role. And so we offer outpatient treatment, we offer awareness prevention, and we also offer residential treatment. My role is I'm basically on the streets, in the jails, working with police. I get called out by police a lot to go when they make an arrest, or if they found something that they think is pertaining to human trafficking, they give me a call. And I go out there and act as a victim's advocate. We also help the women walk through the process of putting their pimps in jail, which is super fun because they're really dumb. The guys are. And they always want to talk. So it's my favorite when they start talking, because they just indict themselves more, which is fantastic. It's so funny. And so, that's what basically what we do. And so we're actually I just took the company international, or the NGO international. So we're stepping into New Zealand, where prostitution is legal. So that's a super fun conversation with government. And then also to the Bahamas, where sex trafficking is illegal but widely accepted by government. So, stepping into some new things with legislation and helping countries rewrite their laws, and kind of on a federal level.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So outside of a personal level, everyone who's watching, what is something that they can do on a community level if they want to get plugged in?
I would say get awareness. Awareness is huge. So, just Google, human trafficking in your area, and like there should be some sort of, if it's not my organization, which I think our SEO is pretty awesome, so I think we're the first like three or four options, but get some training, go to a community event that talks about it, so that when you're at school and this girl is coming in with her much older boyfriend, you can put two and two together. When if you're a first responders are usually the first contact, and usually the only option for someone to try to reach out and get out of the life. So that they can be aware for those signals and pull the girl aside. If the guy's holding all of her documents, he's probably her pimp, just little things. So I'd say go get aware is huge.
That's awesome. All right. Well, is there anything else you would like to say before we wrap it up here?
No, I thank you, and I appreciate this opportunity to kind of spread the word and share my story.
I really appreciate you reaching out and being open to letting me interview you. And I just hope that everyone who's watching is encouraged by this and has some practical steps that they can take if they want to after this. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to either comment or reach out to me. I'm quite accessible through my website, or just comment on the YouTube video. And yeah, I appreciate it. And thank you for tuning in. Bye-bye.